And Alicent, who seems to be quite the busybody, because it's a bit unclear as to if Rhaenyra is carrying on, why do you care? Like, you can have your views and opinions about it, you can think she's doing wrong, but why are you so vested in it, where you're interrogating people and digging to find out the truth and all this kind of stuff? Like, it's none of your business. And here it is that she takes it upon herself to call Sir Christian Cole to question him. And in questioning him, she is really inquiring about Daemon. But because she kind of stops herself short from saying his name, I guess trying to be discreet or whatever it is, she's really trying to get information from Sir Cole about, what exactly does he know? Because he's Rhaenyra's guard. So he is with her much of the time and would have, the best vantage point to have an idea of what's going on with her, what she's doing, and what she's getting up to. Instead, Sir Christian Cole, because he's the one that's been carrying on with Rhaenyra, ends up implicating himself in having an affair with her. And it catches Alicent off guard because up to this point, no one was aware that there was anything going on between Rhaenyra and Sir Christian Cole. They just knew about her and Daemon. And so with this now, number one, it confirms that, Rhaenyra was lying about what was taking place. She was carrying on with someone, though they'd gotten the name wrong. And with that, it's going to call into question her character and whatnot. And you can already see Alicent is going to push this matter. Now, things would be a lot easier, a lot simpler, more straightforward if everyone just minded their own business. But then we wouldn't have a story, right? And I was sitting there and it's I've read the book, I know what's coming, and you can tell as the scene went on what was going to take place, but I was just sitting there sir, Mr. Cole, please just hush your mouth and don't say anything. This is not the time to unburden yourself. But you can see that he's been carrying this thing where he's ashamed of himself. He's broken these vows that he takes very seriously. And so at the first opportunity, he tries to redeem himself. And it's just going to bring a world of problems. You have where Hightower is basically being cast out, where he has been fired from being Hand of the King because of his wheeling and dealing. And he has a conversation with Alicent where she expresses some dismay at him leaving. But in the course of their conversation, he explains his motivations. And it's I understand that, she recognizes that what brought about the problem was him pushing Aegon to be heir, right? He was a little bit too heavy-handed with it. Manipulated a lot of the situations, manipulated Viserys. And the reality is that while he sees it as him potentially doing a good thing, trying to avoid war and whatnot, and that he recognizes that with Rhaenyra being heir, much of the kingdoms will not be in support of this. That whenever it is that Viserys dies, if Rhaenyra is still in place as heir, it's going to cause problems because some of the members of the Seven Kingdom are not going to be accepting of this. And with that, you're going to have a split, which can lead to very serious war. And his thing was, by pushing for Aegon to become heir, it would help to squash a lot of that drama before it gets started. And it's on the one hand, what he's saying makes sense, but the problem is the way that he went about it, right? This kind of thing of, it's understandable, I'm doing what's best for the kingdom, yes, but he did so by manipulating Viserys, whereas Hand to the King, what you should have done was to sit him down and have a conversation with him, explain to him, basically state to him what you stated to Alicent, instead of, setting up Alicent to, to not really seduce him, but, manipulating the situation to marry him to Alicent to then, produce this heir and whatnot. It looks like you're operating in your own best interest. It looks shady. Whereas had he stated from the beginning and worked with Viserys to figure out this whole marriage situation and whatnot, the end result would have probably been different. He sees it as, and it's really the only time I can think of where he shows any kind of affection or anything like that towards Alicent, as for much of the series thus far, he hasn't really seemed to pay her any attention, right? Aside from when she's of some political use to him. But here at least we see that when she shows some concern over him leaving, some dismay over him leaving, that he at least tries to comfort her. And he explains to her the precarious situation that she's now in, where if Rhaenyra remains heir, things are going to shake out in one of two ways. That either Rhaenyra might have to kill her children to stave off their claim to the throne, or they'll have to appeal to her for mercy, hope that she'll be merciful towards them. And it's like either one of those things, it's a risk that you're taking. They're precarious options. And we see that Alicent really was falling hook, line, and sinker for Rhaenyra's denials about carrying on with Daemon and whatnot. Now, granted, she told like a half-truth and a half-lie about the situation with Daemon, and that they didn't have like full-on intercourse, but they did have some kind of contact, and yet still it seems no one knows about her and Sir Cole, which would also cause some uproar. But Alicent sees it as that Hightower is basically spreading rumors about Rhaenyra, and it's like, that's not really true. He was shady with it, but he wasn't lying. Alicent is left back at King's Landing and ends up speaking with, like we've seen him before, this guy with the cane. And he's like another Shady Boots character too, where he's passive-aggressive might not be the word, but I'm going to use it here. Where through roundabout means, he ends up telling Alicent that, if she feels herself in need of an ally, that he's there for her. And he expresses dismay at Hightower's dismissal because he sees it as being unfair, expresses like some false concern for Rhaenyra, because I can't remember if he said he saw or he heard, but that the Grand Maester took a tea to Rhaenyra on the very night that Hightower was dismissed as hand. And his assumption is that if like the Grand Maester made it and took it to her, then whatever she was dealing with had to be extremely serious. But with this, it plants the idea in Alicent's head that, that Rhaenyra was likely lying about what took place, and the tea that she was given the timing of it, was very likely some kind of like an abortion elixir or something like that. So it's like you have it now where Hightower was previously trying to manipulate things to push Rhaenyra aside, but it's going to continue to be this thing where you'll have people, for whatever reasons, most often working in their own best interests, they are going to drive a wedge between Rhaenyra and Alicent. And that divide is only going to get larger over time. Criston Cole has admitted to their entanglement, right? He's told Alicent about this. She hasn't had an opportunity to really tell anyone else as yet, but she knows this to herself, right? Rhaenyra is unaware that she now knows. In the midst of this great feast, Viserys is standing, giving a speech and whatnot, and in very dramatic fashion, in comes Alicent, dressed in this like very vivid green dress. Everyone else has already been seated. The houses were announced and whatnot as they came into this grand room. Everyone was seated and settled and whatnot. In the very midst of Viserys' speech, here she comes walking in. It's a rather dramatic entrance. It's like everyone is already there. She's coming in late, and it's like all eyes are on her. Everyone has to sit there and watch and wait as she makes her way from this entrance to the dais, right, to take her seat. And it just seems to go on for quite some time. She congratulates Rhaenyra on her engagement, but it doesn't really have the right vibe or feeling to it. And she also greets Viserys as well. From there, there's like some mixing and mingling. But what's important to note is that there has been a rift between Alicent and Rhaenyra. And for a brief moment in the previous episode, it seemed as though they might have been able to overcome those issues. But things have occurred where that no longer seems to be the case.
Thanks for tuning in. To ensure you don't miss any episodes, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell, go ahead and click the thumbs up button if you like what you saw, and go ahead and share it on social media.